are not there.
George Salem, it's great to have you on the program. We thank you for your expertise.
Thank you, Chris.
Let me bring in NBC News reporter Ben Collins now, who is our expert on the dark web. He knows the online communities that the white supremacists are often on. You say the Poway incident, deadly shooting, could have been prevented, that we know enough now. Give us an understanding of what you mean by that.
Sure. So on 8chan, where this guy posted an open letter before he went and shot up the synagogue.
A horrific anti-Semitic rant.
That's exactly what it was. This was tied to, like, this is a copycat situation of the one in Christchurch. It was pretty much an identical post to the one in Christchurch, frankly. And a guy on Twitter found it before he went and shot up the synagogue. And he said, a guy is about to go do a hate crime. He called the FBI, he called everyone up, but we don't have a task force in place for this, right? Even though we know exactly what it looks like. We know exactly what that post looks like, right? And we know exactly what those manifestos look like. And we know the words they're using. We know that they are, like he just said, they're into accelerationism and into the idea of a race war. They know that the only way to start it is to divide up society based on race, try to create a white ethno-state. So they knew this before it happened, but they couldn't stop it because they didn't have the resources.
Exactly what George is saying, that they don't have the resources. You tweeted this. They all hang out on the same exact forum. It's not complicated, and I'm tired of writing the same story over and over again.
Yeah, and by the way, it's 8chan. That's what it's called. And it's run by an American guy who fled to the Philippines, knowing full well this is not a website that can be run in the United States without getting their servers seized eventually, right? So there's a way to stop this.
You know, and the comparison I will make is that when I was covering the White House, and there was a lot of concerns about the radicalization, the Islamic radicalization of Americans, it was very hard in some cases to track down where some of these people were who were putting out this stuff. You're saying exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
We know exactly where it is, and we know who's doing it.
Yep, it's not subtle at all. And this is a website that, by the way, just does recently, at least, comply with law enforcement. If you can get more law enforcement resources into that space, you can stop this stuff from happening. There's no doubt, not just in my mind, but lots of people who study this stuff, not just researchers, but people like the ADL studies this all the time, and they say they just need a little bit of help. They need a little bit more resources dedicated to this, just as we did with ISIS. We just need it focused on domestic terror, but it's just not happening right now.
Do these groups have anything to say about President Trump?
Yeah, so both this shooter and the Christchurch shooter and the one in the synagogue in Pittsburgh from Robert Bowers from 6 months ago to the day of this shooting, by the way, all said, President Trump is not doing enough to stop this scourge of immigrants, the scourge of Muslims and Mexicans coming into the country. So while they disavow the president, they don't disavow the policy. They want more violence embedded into that policy. There has been this sort of rewriting of history this weekend by several people, several politicians specifically, saying that this had something to do with a New York Times cartoon, or this had something to do with Ilhan Omar. These people hate Ilhan Omar. They don't read the New York Times. Part of being a white nationalist is not reading mainstream media, not being a part of those spheres. They take the rhetoric of the far right and they try to amplify it to create a race war. That's the whole point of this.
Ben Collins, thank you as always for your great reporting. People can read what he has.